Morning.
Good morning. It is the 5th of Tishrei, the 20th of September, and we are up to page 16. We only have two more pages to finish, believe it or not.
On page 7.
16. That's Zion. And we were talking yesterday about the difference between the first set of tablets and the second. We said that the first ones were for tzaddikim. They were the initial light that came, and we said that the initial revelation of God, which was a revelation that was meant, it's not the revelation of the patriarchs. That's already gone. Now it's a new revelation of Hashem, which is through commandments. And this time, it starts with, and I mentioned this yesterday, that the Rebbe also started and ended his teaching of Nunigunim. And there were 10 years that he did this, sort of like the 10 commandments, the way that people understand them anyway. 10 divided into 10. So they started with tzaddikim, like perfectly righteous people, pious people, not sinned and not done anything wrong. Then he says that Moshe Rabbeinu was able to shatter the initial tablets because that light also was now gone. The initial light was gone. That's exactly the question. He says the moment that the light, that this revelation was over, so even that could be shattered. In the same way that you could ask, how could Nebuchadnezzar, how could Titus have destroyed the temple? Because the moment that Hashem says, I'm finished with it, then Maim Tchunim Tachanta. And the Talmud says, what you've done is, you've how do you say, Nitchon? No. You've grounded water. Meaning you've grounded something that's already ground. I already finished it. And we once talked about this, that in the first temple there's a nevuah from Yechezkel, that we see that God himself is putting the temple ablaze. He's the one who's burning it down and raising it to the ground. And then the fact that people came and did that later is secondary. It's not even as important. So here he says, because this first revelation was now gone, here it's not because just because it elevated. It's also because they did something wrong. Nonetheless, the revelation that's coming now is greater than the revelation that was in the first tablets. And this revelation is now in the second tablets. And this is what's called as the tablets of Balei Tshuva. The second tablets that were given on Yom Kippur, that Moses brought down from the mountain on Yom Kippur, are called the tablets of Balei Tshuva, of the people who return to God. And a person who returns to God is greater in some sense, in many senses, than the person who is always with God. And that is why the initial set of tablets was given with a lot of fanfare. There was thunder and bolts and lightning bolts and all that was going on with it. And he says that's like a tzaddik. A tzaddik is completely revealed. Because at that moment, when they were given the first set of tablets, meaning when God revealed what was written on them in the state of giving the Ten Commandments, they were all in a state of perfectly pious people, and that's what the Medrash describes as whatever blemishes they had, whatever impurities they had in themselves, were gone. They were extricated completely. But what about the second set of tablets? Moses came down from the mountain. Nobody knew about it. He just suddenly appeared in the camp again, and he had the tablets with him. So they were done incognito almost, like b'chashai, without anyone knowing, and quietly. It's like a person who's a repentant, who is returning to God. He doesn't make this into a big affair. He's supposed to cover up his iniquities. Nisui pesha. Ksui chata. He covers up whatever he did wrong. He's not supposed to take pride in it.
What is the difference between this?
Part of it. In general, all vidui. It's not just Shmoneh Esrei. All vidui. You're supposed to say quietly. The other person is not supposed to hear you. Even on Yom Kippur, even if you voice the words, so that you can hear them, it's still proper that someone else, at least the vidui, should not hear. The confession, one should not hear what someone else's. שהוא היה אחר החטא העגל שחזרה זרמתם, והם צריכים להתברר על ידי התורה והמצוות. Because now they were after the sin of the golden calf. And this new blemish, this new impurity which they had collected, had to be taken out of them. וידוע שמתן תורה לבעלי תשובה ובחינת המדרגה גבוה ביותר, כמו שכתוב במדרש, הפסוק ויגד לך תעלומות חוכמה, כי כפליים לתושייה. אילולי חטאו ישראל לא היה להם אלא מקרא בספר יהושע בלבד. עכשיו שחטאו הרבה להם תורה ומצוות, מקרא ומשנה והלכות ואגדות. We know that the giving of the Torah to a Baal Tshuva is higher than the giving of the Torah to a pious person. The Torah that a person who's returning to God needs is much higher than the Torah of someone who's never left the presence of God. Okay? So the Medrash says about a verse in Eov, that he will reveal to you the mysteries of wisdom. What's the mysteries of wisdom? It says mysteries of wisdom is a higher level. It's chokhmah ila'ah, it's a supernal wisdom. It's explained in Tanya in length. In any case, the Medrash says about this verse, Ki kiflaim letushiyah, he will give you the mysteries of wisdom, the higher aspect of wisdom, because it is twice as powerful. Ki kiflaim letushiyah. And the Medrash explains, the sages explain, that if the Jewish people would not have sinned, meaning that there would not have been the sin of the spies, and later on they would have just conquered the land of Israel without any delay, and all the tribes would have taken their locations, their places, then all we would have received would be the Pentateuch, the 5 books of Moses, and the book of Joshua. That would have been the entire written Torah. The other 18 books would not be. We wouldn't need them. Because you wouldn't need them. No. We would never have come to that position of being in exile. Everything that is after that is because things didn't work. From Judges and on, what is Judges? When you went into the land of Israel, you had 3 commandments: to appoint a king, to destroy the seed of Amalek, and to build a temple. Which ones did they do? None of the above. It took them 400 years until they decided finally to appoint a king. It took another 57 years until a little bit more. 12, 14, it is 54 years. Sorry. It took another 54 years to build the temple. And after that, it's just a long series of you not listening to God, not doing what God says. It's not like anything was new. Everything was written in the Torah, but they couldn't do it. So the prophets and the writings and everything are stories that come about as a result of our transgressions. They weren't meant to be. We didn't need them, but it also teaches you something, that even when you do something wrong, you need to make it into Torah in the end. You have to turn it into something. So even things that did not go according to plan are still part of the Torah. You shouldn't discount them. In fact, in previous generations, they made literally Torah out of it, until the point where they called it written Torah. It becomes part of the Tanakh. Later on, all these stories become stories of Chazal, stories of the sages, and further on, when the principle in Yiddishkeit is that even when things go wrong, we turn them into Torah. We have something to learn from them. So in any case, they wouldn't have needed these other 18 books. So it's a very nice allusion here, that if we have 24 books, there's the 5 books of Moses, leaves 19, and the book of Joshua leaves 18. So they needed chai more, need to give them life for them to survive after transgressing. So now, so what does this mean? That they get more Torah. In the end, what it means is there's more revealed. If you would have just listened to me, so all you would have needed was 5 books of Moses and Joshua to know how to conquer the land. And that would have been it. Now that you've done all these sins and you want to return, so the return is turning your iniquities into Torah. Okay? והגם שרש"י פירש כדי ליגען כדי שלא יחוטא נשכר. Rashi gives a different interpretation there. Not there, but somewhere in the Gemara, I think. He says that the reason he gave them more Torah is because the Baal Tshuva needs to learn more. Not because he needs a higher Torah, because he needs to commit himself to learning to make up for the sins that he has, and to sort of like to punish him in a certain sense, if you can even think about it that way. But le'agan b'Torah is like to make them toil more in Torah, and that toil will cleanse them of their sins, so that the one who sins here again, this is a very strange idea, but he's saying if you would have less Torah, then you would be better off. It would be less to learn. You would have less obligations. Let's call it like that. So the person who sins does not get a reward for having sinned by having less Torah. In any case, he says, even though Rashi says this, still we understand that the second set of tablets are considered the mysteries of knowledge, whereas the first set was only the mysteries of wisdom, whereas the first set was just wisdom. So it's a supernal wisdom, and it's twice as much. It's not exactly twice as much. We talked about this once, at least once, that the second set of tablets has 88 more letters than the first set. So the first set had 613, and the second set has...
Why is there more letters?
Because it has more letters. If you read the Ten Commandments in Beit Hanan, they have 88 more letters than the Ten Commandments in Yitro.
I think that's refers to the first and the second.
That's the accepted tradition in the sages. So there's 701. 701 letters in the second, because 613 plus 88, I think, is 701. If it would have been 702, and this is the way it's usually explained, with the Kolel, it comes out to Shabbat. We know the Shabbat is the same letters as Teshuv, of returning, and of coming back to Hashem. As it's known, and here he gives an explanation for all this. He says, we can use the metaphor of lighting a room with a candle. If the space that the candle needs to light is small, then it's enough. You can do with one candle.